Look around you for a second. Most men you see are working to appear harmless. They lower their voice as soon as it carries too much weight. They rush to agree with whatever the loudest person just said. They laugh at jokes that insult them just to keep the peace. They swallow their real opinions and serve up safe, soft, digestible versions instead. Their whole strategy is simple. Never scare anyone, never upset anyone, never stand out. They call this kindness, politeness, being a good guy. But you can feel the truth under it. It's fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of being labeled difficult or too intense, fear of losing crumbs of approval they secretly depend on. Now, contrast that with you or the man you know you're supposed to become. You don't chase people down to fix every misunderstanding. You don't beg strangers to like you. You don't twist yourself into whatever shape makes other people the most comfortable. You move differently. You speak when you have something to say. You can sit in a room and say almost nothing, and somehow your presence still feels heavy. That weight disturbs weak men. That's why you hear, "You're too serious. You're intimidating. You make me uncomfortable," even though you haven't threatened anyone or raised a single fist. You refuse to shrink. So the world has to label you dangerous because it cannot label you controllable. Here's the question: are you actually dangerous in a destructive way, or are you hard to bend in a culture that worships softness and obedience? If Niccolò Machiavelli were watching your life, he wouldn't measure how friendly you look. He wouldn't care how often you smile or how well you get along with everyone. He would ask one thing only: is this man easy to bend, or does he stand where he chooses and accept the consequences? In this video, I'm going to show you 7 signs that you have a dangerous, intimidating personality in the Machiavellian sense, and why the world reacts to you with quiet fear and respect. If you already carry these traits and don't understand them, you will spend years apologizing for your strength instead of using it. And if you don't have them yet, but want real power, you need to know exactly what they are, or you'll stay stuck as a harmless extra in other people's stories. Before we go any further, we have to draw a brutal line: the difference between being dangerous in the right way and becoming another deeply unstable threat indeed. Before you decide that being dangerous is your new identity, you need to understand exactly what that word means here. Dangerous, in this context, does not mean unhinged, abusive, or cruel. It means you are not easily pushed, not easily guilted, not emotionally programmable. You are dangerous to systems and people who live off control, not to random strangers minding their own business. The kind of man we are shaping here is not the guy who screams at waiters, bullies weaker men, or plays mind games with vulnerable women. That's not power. That's a walking insecurity wound. Emotional abuse, humiliation kinks, deliberate manipulation of naive people, all of that is off the table. Machiavelli understood this nuance. He wrote that a prince must be prepared to act not good when survival and order demand it. But he also warned that a ruler who becomes hated eventually unites his enemies and loses everything. Real power uses restraint and precision, not chaos and ego explosions. So as you listen to these 7 signs, treat them as tools for becoming unbreakable and unmanipulable, not a license to LARP as some cartoon villain. Good men who refuse to understand dark behavior become its easiest victims. Good men who study it ethically stay good without staying weak. Once this line is clear, we can break down what a truly intimidating presence is built from. Most people throw the word intimidating around like it means loud, angry, or massive. Machiavelli would laugh at that. In his world, the most dangerous men were often quiet, polite. What made them frightening was not volume, it was structure. If you want to understand your own presence, you need a blueprint for what intimidating looks like. It isn't about tattoos, muscles, or a deep voice. It comes down to three things. First, conviction. You move like your decisions are already made. You don't visually beg for instructions. You don't hover before every choice, waiting for someone to nod. Something in your posture, in your timing says, I know what I'm doing, even when you say nothing. Second, emotional opacity. You still feel everything: anger, attraction, irritation, disappointment, but other people can't clearly see which buttons to press to get specific reactions. Your face doesn't instantly betray every spike of emotion. Your tone doesn't rise and fall just because someone else's did. You are readable enough to be human, but not transparent enough to be programmable. Third, unclear limits. People do not know exactly how far they can push you, or what will happen if they cross certain lines. You're not unpredictable in a chaotic way. You're unpredictable in a costly way. They sense there are consequences, but they don't have them fully mapped. Now compare that to the soft archetype you see everywhere: convictionless, hyper-readable, painfully afraid of confrontation. His body language asks, "Is this okay?" His face confesses every feeling. His limits are obvious and flexible. Machiavelli wrote that rulers maintain power by managing appearances, reactions, and consequences. Those who broadcast every thought, emotion, and tolerance level make rebellion safe. Those who combine conviction, opacity, and uncertain limits make it risky. The 7 signs we're about to cover are just visible indicators that these 3 components are alive in you. Without this lens, you either overact like a fake alpha or fold like a people pleaser. With it, you understand why certain things you do make others nervous, even when you're not trying to scare anyone. The fastest way to spot a harmless man is to look at his eyes when he talks. They're constantly scanning for permission. He starts a sentence with a little spark of honesty. Then his gaze flicks around the room to see if it was too much. If he senses the slightest disapproval, he softens his tone, backtracks, makes a joke, anything to show he didn't really mean it. When someone locks eyes with him, he flinches, looks away, or fills the space with nervous chatter. His gaze is a question: is what I'm saying okay with you? Are you still comfortable with me? Your eyes, or the eyes you're here to build, work differently. When you look at someone, you're present. You don't stare them down like a teenager trying to look tough. You simply don't look away first. In normal moments, your gaze is calm and observant. In pressure moments, an argument, a challenge, a thinly veiled insult, your eyes don't suddenly widen with panic. They narrow slightly with calculation. You're not thinking, "How do I make them like me again?" You're thinking, "What is the smartest move?" People feel that. When you walk into a room and make eye contact, many don't feel validated. For a second, they wonder what you just saw in them. Machiavelli would judge you on this alone. Do your eyes ask, "What should I do? What do you want from me?" Or do they quietly declare, "I already know what I'm doing, and I'll live with the consequences"? If your eyes still broadcast doubt and apology, every other signal of strength you send will be drowned under insecurity. But a gaze anchored in conviction forces people to edit themselves. They choose their words more carefully. They think twice before disrespecting you, because something in your eyes says you are not easily moved. To build this, start small. Hold eye contact 2 seconds longer than feels safe, and stop reflexively softening your expression just to put others at ease. From here, the real fear for manipulators begins, because the next sign isn't about how you look at people. It's about what you quietly see when they start talking. Most people hear conversations like background music. They only register the lyrics, never the pattern behind the sound. They believe what is said if it is said confidently enough. You operate on a completely different channel. You don't just listen to words. You watch everything wrapped around them. The half-second hesitation before an answer. The needless explanation of something simple. The way a person's tone sharpens when power shifts in the room. When a friend only appears when he needs money, attention, or favors, you notice. When a partner overjustifies tiny inconsistencies that never needed a story, you notice. When a coworker is charming around the boss and cold around the cleaners, you notice. And you don't always respond in the moment. That's what unnerves people. You let them finish their performance. You nod, you stay polite, and while they think you bought the act, you are silently filing data. You adjust trust levels. You change how much information you share. You distance your time and your energy without big speeches. Machiavelli understood that a ruler's survival depends on reading loyalty, fear, ambition, and envy more accurately than everyone else. You are playing that same game on a smaller scale. This doesn't make you paranoid. Paranoid people invent threats where none exist. You're doing the opposite. You're refusing to pretend real warning signs aren't there just because calling them out would be inconvenient or lonely. People who can't read patterns are open source code for manipulators. Every weakness, every insecurity, every desire is visible to anyone willing to look. But when manipulators test their usual weapons on you, guilt, flattery, fake charm, victim theatrics, they feel something strange. The key doesn't fit the lock. Their tricks land flat. Your eyes show that you see exactly what they're doing, and that awareness alone forces them to treat you carefully or flee. Once life has trained you to see through people this clearly, you can never fully go back to naive listening. And that ability did not appear in a vacuum. It was carved into you by the pain you've already survived, which hardened you into someone who can't afford to take everyone at face value anymore, ever again, in truth. There's a reason your energy feels heavier than most men's, and it's not fake toughness, it's history. You've tasted real financial fear, the kind that keeps you staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m, doing math in your head, wondering how long before something breaks. You've trusted people you would have gone to war for, only to watch them switch sides the moment it suited them. You've had plans you were proud of fall apart in public, felt the sting of humiliation and the shame of starting from zero again. And more than once, when you were at your lowest, nobody came. No rescue, no safety net, just you and the mess and the decision, collapse or harden. Most men choose collapse. They stay there, replaying the betrayal, telling the same sad story for years. You chose something different. You still felt everything, but instead of letting it rot you from the inside, you started to extract rules from your pain. You stopped expecting life to be fair. You stopped assuming good intentions as the default. You stopped handing out trust, access, and loyalty like free samples. That choice quietly changed your nervous system. Now, When minor drama appears, you don't jump in. Someone's upset about a late text, a rude comment, an inconvenience, and you just look at them, wondering how they would handle the storms you've already walked through. When others panic, you go still. You've seen worse. Machiavelli preferred advisors who had already seen wars, exiles, uprisings. Untested men were just theories waiting to fail under pressure. You carry that same qualification. People can't always explain it, but they feel something forged about you. Your scars are invisible to the eye, but written into your posture, your tone, the way you don't crumble when plans shift suddenly. If you don't consciously weaponize those scars, they remain open wounds anyone can poke. But when you integrate them, they become armor that softer, sheltered people can't understand. That incomprehension makes them uneasy, and unease, in the presence of calm, always reads as intimidation. Your past is the reason you no longer need to fill every silence, which is exactly where the next layer of your presence emerges. If pain hardened you, silence weaponized you. Most people treat silence like an alarm bell. The second there is a gap in conversation, they rush to fill it with noise. They babble, overshare, crack weak jokes, or start explaining things nobody even asked about. They are not speaking from power, they are speaking from anxiety. The quiet makes them feel naked, so they cover themselves in words. You, or the man you are becoming, move differently. You can sit still without lunging for your phone. You can stand in a circle and listen instead of fighting to perform. You don't feel obligated to comment on everything. In accusations, you're especially dangerous. When someone comes at you with loaded questions or half-truths, you don't instantly defend yourself or dump your whole side of the story on the floor. You watch. You let them talk. You let their story stretch, twist, and contradict itself. In group settings, when the air gets heavy because no one knows what to say, you don't panic and start tap dancing verbally. You let the awkwardness sit like weight in the middle of the table. That weight forces everyone else to show their cards. Some will joke nervously, some will spill secrets, some will reveal resentment they were trying to hide. Machiavelli understood that a ruler who speaks less and listens more is harder to overthrow because no one fully knows his hand. Strategic silence keeps your position concealed and your options open. Practically, this means you build a new habit. After any request, accusation, or manipulative line, you pause. You breathe. You let 3 seconds of silence hang before you decide whether to answer, redirect, or ignore. Watch what people add when you don't rush to rescue them from their own discomfort. If you can't handle silence, you will always be dragged into over-explaining, into emotional leaks, into saying things you wish you could retract. But in a stimulus-addicted era, a man who is calm in silence feels unpredictable, and unpredictable is intimidating. Your comfort with silence is not an accident. It comes from your willingness to live in discomfort in general, which is the next edge that separates you from soft men in a weak world. Most people will crawl over broken glass to protect one thing. They will sacrifice their health by eating trash, their potential by procrastinating, their self-respect by staying in weak relationships, as long as they don't have to feel tired, awkward, afraid, or exposed. Their entire life strategy is pain avoidance. You are slowly building the opposite strategy. You go to bed when you said you would, so you can wake earlier than you have to. You drag yourself to the gym when nobody is watching. You work on skills after work. when everyone else is numbing out in front of a screen. You take on projects that might embarrass you if they fail. You choose conversations that might get tense instead of hiding behind fake harmony. From the outside, people think you're just into self-improvement. They miss the darker truth. You don't trust a life that's too easy. You've seen what comfort does to men. It makes them dependent, breakable, obedient. If losing a job, a person, or a routine is enough to crush you, you were never strong, you were stable. Machiavelli understood that the men who prepare in times of peace are the ones who stand in times of war. You live like the storm is guaranteed. So you treat every hard workout, early morning, and difficult choice as training for a pressure you haven't met yet. This is why your discipline makes other people uncomfortable. Standing next to you, they feel judged without you saying a word because your habits expose their excuses. To protect their ego, they have to label you obsessed, extreme, unbalanced. That's fine. They need to believe you're the weird one, so they don't have to confront their own cowardice. If you refuse to choose small, voluntary discomfort now, life will eventually hand you massive, involuntary pain later. A man used to sweating, failing, being tired and moving anyway cannot be easily controlled with threats of inconvenience or temporary loss. You become the kind of person who can keep walking when comfort addicts are on their knees, which is why the next battlefield isn't physical, it's social. Because a disciplined man is weak if fear of disapproval can steer his decisions. If you wanted to control a man without chains, you wouldn't need weapons. You'd only need one thing, his terror of being disliked. Once he's addicted to approval, you can steer almost every part of his life. Tell him people will be disappointed, and he'll abandon his own judgment. Hint that the group might reject him, and he'll edit his beliefs in real time. That was your old pattern. You explained every boundary with essays. You apologized, not just when you were wrong, but whenever someone felt anything negative around you. You rewired your opinions depending on who was in the room, because the thought of being labeled selfish, arrogant, or difficult felt unbearable. That version of you was easy to manage. All anyone had to do was raise an eyebrow and your spine folded. The man you're becoming is built differently. You still listen, but you don't worship. You say no without decorating it with 5 layers of justification and fake guilt. You walk away from dynamics that drain you instead of staying to protect your nice guy reputation. You've accepted a brutal truth that most people never swallow. Some will misunderstand you forever, no matter how carefully you explain. They will create stories where you're cold, controlling, or cruel, simply because you stopped letting them get away with disrespect. Machiavelli would tell you that any man who lives to please the public can never hold serious power, because real decisions always come with outrage and resistance. If you need to be universally liked, you are disqualified from doing what is necessary. Opinion immunity doesn't mean you spit on everyone's judgment. It means you rank it. You care about the views of a small inner circle who've proven loyalty and competence, and you treat the rest as background noise. As long as other people's opinions act as a leash, anyone with social power over you can yank you back into obedience whenever they wish. The moment you would rather be the villain in someone else's story than the traitor in your own, you become extremely hard to govern. And when that happens, the only lever left to pull on you is information, which is why your mystery makes people so deeply nervous. When approval stops steering you, the only real way left to control you is through information, which is exactly why your privacy feels dangerous to people who depend on predictability. We live in an age of compulsive exposure. Everyone broadcasts everything. What they ate, how they feel, every hour, who upset them, their arguments, their apologies, their next 10 plans. Their entire inner map is online, free to download. You are moving in the opposite direction. You still share, but in layers. People earn depth over time, instead of receiving your whole story on day one. New people don't instantly learn what broke you, what you fear most, or what you would kill to protect. You don't announce every move the moment you think of it. You let actions appear first, explanations later, if at all. You don't bleed your secrets into group chats and comment sections just to feel real. Machiavelli understood secrecy as leverage. A prince whose motives, limits, and methods are fully known invites simple strategies for removal. An opponent who cannot be easily mapped forces everyone to move more carefully, because every guess could be wrong and costly. Your mystery is not an act, not some edgy persona. It is simply the refusal to turn your inner world into public property for people who have not earned the right to see it. You let people see what you decide advances your interests or deepens earned trust, nothing more. In a world addicted to overexposure, a man who doesn't need to broadcast himself is automatically read as powerful, arrogant, or dangerous, because nobody knows what you're truly capable of or where your final line is. If people perfectly know your fears, your price, and your exact breaking point, they also know exactly how to steer you. When they can't map you, they default to caution, and that caution is one of the purest forms of respect. If these 7 signs sound like you now, or like the man you feel yourself becoming, the real question is what that actually makes you in practice, and what it means if only 2 or 3 signs have started to emerge so far, and what you decide to do next. Ruthlessly. Now you need to be brutally honest with yourself. As you listened, did you recognize all 7 signs, or only 2 or 3 faintly starting to form? Either answer is fine, as long as you stop lying about it. If you already embody most of these traits, the message for you is simple. Stop apologizing for them. Stop letting softer men shame you for being difficult to control. Your work now is refinement, discipline, and ethics, not shrinking. If you only saw a few signs in yourself, this is not a verdict that you are weak forever. It is a blueprint of who you can deliberately become. The integrated archetype looks like this: eyes that don't ask for permission, a mind that sees patterns instead of stories, a body and spirit conditioned by hardship, silence used as a tool instead of a symptom of insecurity, discomfort chosen over slow decay, opinions weighed instead of worshipped, and a deep inner world protected by selective mystery. Machiavelli would recognize you as a modern prince, not because you rule others, but because you rule yourself first and force everyone else to negotiate with that reality. If you don't consciously step into this identity, you will drift back into softness the moment life really tests you. Once you see these mechanics, staying harmless is no longer fate, it is a choice. Information without application is just another costume of weakness. So now we're going to stress test these signs in your real life this week. Listening to this and nodding along changes nothing if you move through the next week exactly the same. Now you need a controlled test. Pick the 2 signs that exposed your softest points, maybe strategic silence and opinion immunity, or eyes of conviction and voluntary discomfort. For each sign, choose one simple rule and obey it for 7 days straight. Your rule might be, I never explain myself twice, I pause 5 seconds before reacting. Or each day I say one clean no where I used to justify. Keep a tiny log in your phone. Write when you were tested, whether you held the rule or folded, how people responded, and most importantly, whether you stayed ethical. This is not about turning numb or cruel. It is about cutting your dependence on fear, approval, and impulsive reaction. One disciplined week of dark calibration will show you exactly how much power you have been leaking through apologies, oversharing, and soft excuses. After these 7 days, you won't just understand Machiavelli's lessons intellectually. You'll feel them living in your behavior. That is when you have the right to claim publicly that you are, in truth, a dangerous and disciplined man from now. These 7 signs are not random personality quirks. Together, they prove you are not easy to bend, buy, or break. That is why people call you intimidating now, or why they will once you start living this way. You are not here to become a bully. You are here to be the one man who does not fold when everyone else is scrambling to keep their peace. In a world built on control, the most dangerous thing you can be is a man who cannot be quietly owned. If this resonated with you, claim it, type "I am built unbreakable" in the comments. Tell me which sign hit you the hardest and where you are going to apply it this week. Subscribe if you want more Machiavellian dark lessons in power and self-defense. This place is only for men willing to be feared a little to never be controlled again. I choose strength over comfort. My gaze never wavers. I see beyond words. Pain forged my presence. Silence is my weapon. I stand firm alone. Mystery is my power. Drop this in the comments if you're done being harmless. I am built unbreakable. Tell me, which of the 7 signs hit you the hardest, and where in your life are you going to apply it this week? If this finally made you understand why calm, quiet men are the most dangerous, comment, "I see the game now."